having a very clear vision for yourself, being as authentic with yourself as and honest as with yourself as you can be is one of the greatest gifts. It was the meaning that martial arts gave to me. It gave me a purpose. It gave me a reason to live and enjoy getting up.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University. We have a very special guest today. He is a former professional mixed martial artist, predominantly in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. He is a commentator now, and he also has a podcast. The one and only Ken Florian. What is happening, my friend?
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course, we are very excited. I did my fanboy in the preamble, so you don't all need to hear about that. So, Kenny, I think an important part of your story is you started mixed martial arts before it was cool, before it was viral, before it was like it is today. So, when you started fighting in 2003, can you paint a picture of what the fight scene was like and how many people thought you were crazy?
Sure. I'd say 99.9% of the people thought I was crazy, including my parents, my family. So I remember when I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it was like 1997. No one knew what that was, unless you were one of the few people that were watching the UFC in the early 90s, early to mid 90s. So I was constantly explaining what jiu-jitsu was and how it started and the Gracie family and ground fighting and all that stuff. And I felt like it was kind of the same conversation with mixed martial arts when I had to explain, all right, so there's this cage and you can fight, and then explaining the rules and what you could do and all that stuff. Not a lot of people knew what it was. And as you said, I definitely was partaking in a sport that wasn't cool. In fact, prior to that or shortly before that, it was illegal, through most of the United States. It was not really regulated fully at that time. There was a lot of misunderstanding, I think, about the sport in general. And I definitely went a completely different route. I had graduated from Boston College and, was working a regular job, and then, kind of had this near-death experience. And I decided, you know what? I love martial arts. That's what I want to do full time. I had no idea it would be as a professional mixed martial artist, but it kind of led me down that path.
Interesting. I did not know about the near-death experience. Could you go into? So I'll piggyback it so Alan can ask some questions, because if not, Alan, I'm going to take this right off the freaking.
Honestly, Kev, go nuts, man. Honestly.
So can you take us into? Alan and I both had near-death experiences. I was suicidal. Alan was in a very bad car accident at 26, and that changed the trajectory of both of our lives. Can you go into that? And also, what advice would you give to somebody out there right now who is an entrepreneur, who everybody around them thinks they're a little bit crazy for doing what they're doing? Maybe not to the extent of getting in a cage and fighting another human, but you kept going and you were wildly successful at it. Can you speak to some advice on that as well?
Yeah, thanks. I guess to talk about the near-death experience, I was in Brazil on a training trip. I was descending down a mountain, a very famous area, Pedra de Gávea, which is Gávea Rock in Rio de Janeiro. And we had kind of gotten off the path a little bit where it was wet and, a bunch of moss and grass and stuff like that, loose dirt. And as we were descending down the mountain, kind of going off and exploring, one of my friends had slipped and kind of slid down the mountain, and we kind of laughed about it. We're like, whoa, that was close. And then, maybe another few hundred yards, it was my turn, and I slipped, and I was sliding down the mountain like I was going down a slide. My friend had grabbed me. I had a tank top on, grabbed my tank top, couldn't hold on. But what happened in that process is he spun me around. So now I was going head first, sliding down the mountain. All of a sudden I felt air and I was just falling. And it probably was, I don't know, I had fallen onto a ledge. And if I didn't fall on that ledge, it would have been hundreds of feet. And luckily, I just fell on that ledge. And luckily, I did not hit my head as I fell somehow. I kind of like slapped out like I would in jiu-jitsu and, kind of broke my fall. But it was probably a decent drop. I mean, it was probably, I don't know, 25, 30 feet, something like that, landing on my back. It knocked the wind out of me. I remember hearing my friends, freaking out. One of them was crying, thinking I was dead for sure because they couldn't see where I had landed. Um, and they ended up lifting me off the ledge. I got up and like we were just super quiet heading down the mountain, and I had time to reflect during that descent down the mountain. And even as I was falling, I had your cartoon like or movie like life flashing before your eyes moment, where I remember feeling very sad as I was falling. I was like, man, this is how I'm going to go. This is how I'm going to die. Like, man, there were so many things I wanted to do. And I wanted to live a more authentic life. I was living a life where I was just getting a job and doing what I thought I was supposed to do. And then I was going to go to law school because that's what my parents wanted me to do. I'm not sure I really wanted to do that in my heart of hearts. I would do it, but did I really want to do it in my bones? Probably not. I wanted to spend my time doing martial arts. And I remember just thinking all those thoughts and wow, I'm going to die in a mountain in Brazil. Like, are my parents going to see me and blah, blah. Anyways, I landed, I was fine. And I just had a lot of time to reflect on that moment. And a lot of things changed from that moment on. I was married at the time. I was in my early 20s. I got married early. I got divorced. I left my job to pursue martial arts full time. And there were a lot of things that changed in my life from that moment on. I mean, I lost a lot of friends because of just the nature of what I did. And I just dedicated myself to martial arts, not knowing where I would even go with it. What I would urge people to do, I guess, is to listen to your heart and listen to your gut. And that sounds so cliche to say, but that's where your true knowing comes from. It's inside, and being authentic with yourself and knowing what moves you and knowing what you're passionate about. I think no matter what the future may be, if you're loving what you're doing, you will find a way to make it work. I think it's our passion that drives creativity, especially when we encounter struggle. Struggle, love, it goes hand in hand. It's paradoxical, but it's what kind of there are two energies that kind of form together to drive us to where we need to go. And it's extremely important. We think that there's this easy path to the top and there's this direct line, and it is never that way. It is a constant hike up and down, up and down. What keeps us going? It's our love and our passion for what we do. And that is the biggest thing. Now, where does that passion and love come from? I believe it comes from meaning first and foremost, because you know what? There were a lot of days where it was extremely freaking difficult, where I was training 3 times a day, or I had to cut weight, or I had to push through injuries, or I had to push through mental blocks, or I was sore as hell. Whatever the case may be, I had to push through those things repeatedly, and I always found more. It was the meaning that martial arts gave to me. It gave me a purpose. It gave me a reason to live and enjoy getting up and enjoy being sore and enjoy learning. Even if I was taking some lumps along the way, I didn't always love the results, but ultimately I knew it was for me to get better and evolve and learn. And those are the things that I've always that I've always been curious about, that have always kind of driven me in a variety of pursuits.
Beautifully said.
Well said, Kenny. I have a specific question that I wanted to ask you today, and I'm going to provide context first. So every time I get around someone who is in a unique industry or might have a unique perspective, I like to ask this exact same question. I asked it this past weekend to an oral surgeon, actually. And the question is simple, but first I'm going to provide context. So if you've never done a bodybuilding show, this is something you wouldn't know. If you look healthy backstage, you're going to lose on stage. So my question for you is, being in the UFC and martial arts, there's so many people that watch UFC at this point, and they're watching from outside the cage, so to speak. What's something that nobody really understands unless you were in the cage? Like what's something about martial arts or the UFC that other people might not understand unless they were in the industry, in the cage, actually living it?
Gosh, I think there's a lot. I guess it would be the amount of work that it takes to get in there. And that's why I think just to get in there and compete at the professional level, when it comes to the combative sports, I think is an achievement. There's so much that goes on. I mean, there's years and years of training and then putting it all together and then balancing things right, from dieting to strength and conditioning to the mental training to, the doubts and the fears and, being overconfident or whatever it may be. There's so many things that are going on prior to a fight. And you realize that before you get in there and be successful, you must first defeat yourself. You must first defeat that person on your shoulder that's telling you maybe you can't do it, or why are you doing this, or you should just give up, or why are you training so hard, or why don't you just take it easy today. Now you can go too far the other way as well, right? You could do too much sparring to the point where now your head's getting traumatized, or you're just doing too much. But it's finding that ability to push a little bit more and be as honest with yourself as possible. And I think that's one of the more difficult things that not only fighters, but any of us have to deal with, is like putting yourself in check. Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Where are my weaknesses? Where am I not? Where are my blind spots? And how do I fix it? And that's especially important in combat, because the truth will reveal itself. Like, we're going to find out where you went wrong. If you did too much, if you did too little, if you didn't spend enough time wrestling, if you did spend too much time wrestling, if all those things will reveal itself. Someone will expose you. So instead of being embarrassed on fight night, hey, let's embarrass ourselves now and be as honest with ourselves as possible, and fill in those holes and shore up those weaknesses.
I have another one. Oh,
You have another one. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
I don't
no,
want
you
to
can
take your dream.
No, go.
from
You're good. You're good.
All right, so I see some books in the background. You also mentioned meaning, and I couldn't agree more. It really is, is your work deeply meaningful to you? I think that's so powerful. Super selfish question. What's your favorite book and why?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. It's tough to say what my favorite book is. One of the books that has inspired me tremendously, and actually, first time I read it, it really it shocked me. It shocked me, and it triggered me in a negative way. Like, I didn't want to hear it. It was called it was by Jiddu Krishnamurti, the Awakening of Intelligence. And it kind of went against everything. I don't know if it went against everything that I believed in, but it almost dissolved the structures that I had in my brain, and it kind of like short circuited me a little bit, and I had to put it down. And then I went back and reread it, yeah, it taught me a philosophy and approach that is one that I still carry to this day. Yeah, it definitely had a big impact on me. Any of the books on Musashi, I think, has been inspirational. But I read a lot, especially after my loss in the finale of The Ultimate Fighter. I had lost to a more experienced and more dangerous fighter in Diego Sanchez. I was completely paralyzed mentally before that fight and during that fight. And I realized that, wow, this was like the first time that I was genuinely scared and frozen in a situation like this. What do I need to do to wake up? What do I need to do to get myself mentally prepared? And I read a lot on philosophy and battle and war and tactics and stuff like that, to kind of help me understand that mindset and what I needed to improve.
What was the name of the book again? Awakening Intelligence?
The Awakening of Intelligence by Jiddu Krishnamurti.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kenny, and maybe you highlighted the answer to this question in that answer, but what was the fight that taught you the most about yourself, that inspired you, of like, okay, wow, I didn't expect it to go like that, or maybe you did. And what was the fight where you were the most humbled in terms of, that is not what I expected to happen at all?
Yeah, so certainly in the Diego Sanchez fight, I think I was absolutely humbled. I think any of the losses and some of the wins, candidly, you get humbled because, I would inevitably find a lot of mistakes that I would make during a fight. And perhaps I was a little too hard on myself, but I always would look at things like, nah, that doesn't look right. I need to be improving this or that or that. But,
Hi, my name's John Laurito, and I just wanted to give a big shout out to Kevin Palmieri. I had reached out to him. He had been referred to me when I had shared with a friend of mine some interest in doing a podcast, and he said, you've got to use Kevin. He's fantastic. He's the best around. He'll get you started and off the ground and soaring high in no time. And take it from somebody who knows nothing about podcasting other than maybe saying a few things. But as far as behind the scenes, the startup, everything, I knew nothing. Kevin was phenomenal in terms of leading me through the whole process, and not just easy to work with, but really, really knows his stuff. A great combination between leading me through all the stuff I had no idea what I was doing, but also really listening to me and understanding what it was I was trying to accomplish and what my vision is. So whether you're looking for somebody to help you and get you started, or somebody, as I've done, where I'm putting it entirely in his hands because I've got total trust and confidence in him, and he is a true pro and easy to work with, any of those ends of the spectrum, you're going to have a lot of success and a lot of fun working with Kevin. Trust me. Thanks.
All of the fights I learned from, I don't know. I guess the fight that really drove me and kind of disappointed me the most was the Diego Sanchez fight. And then did you say one of the fights that I performed well in that I was proud of, or
yeah, one that humbled you and one that built confidence?
Okay, gotcha. I guess the fight against Kit Cope built confidence. That was my first experience with being in a many people call a flow state. I don't remember exerting any energy. I don't remember feeling any pain. I don't remember the crowd. I don't remember anything. I just remember really starting the fight and then getting my hand raised and being like, whoa, how did that happen? It was like everything I was seeing was in slow motion. Even if it wasn't happening in slow motion, it was like I could see and feel everything that was happening. I think because I was just incredibly present for whatever reason that day. And that gave me a big confidence builder to be like, oh, I need to chase that. Like, I need to chase that feeling and try to replicate that. And I found that the more I tried to chase that feeling, the harder it was to attain, right? Like so many things in life, the more you try to do things, it's just like, it's hard to get a hold of life and hold on to it. You have to almost let it be, is what I find for a lot of things. So finding that balance of how to attain that was, and it still is a search and an awesome feeling when it does happen.
I'm glad Alan asked about books, because one of the things that I remember when I first saw you, you look like a fighter, but you also had a mind, and you could tell that you were studied, right? You were a studied human being. Okay, so a lot of people who talk about discipline are, the bodybuilder, they yell at you, the do it or fail. What is your relationship with discipline, and how have you leveraged it into your life through maybe not a pure forcing, but like understanding the benefit and how to discipline yourself better?
Yeah. Gosh, I think that's something candidly that I'm still learning, right? There's times where I've done way too much, and my urge to win and perform well has pushed me to the point of like injuring myself or being, overly fatigued, or, to the point where I really can't function, where like my whole system shuts down, cutting weight too much, whatever it is. But also, also in the beginning of understanding that, like, hey, I'm not doing enough and I'm not being smart enough. I think that it's important to plan and strategize, and understand what is the most efficient thing. I think as humans in general, what differentiates us from other animals is our ability to think, strategize, plan, and also be as efficient as possible in that planning. So we have to be able to manage, like, what is the best path? what is the quickest path? How can I see the best? How can I get there more directly? All those things need to be taken into consideration. And in order to do that, you really have to understand yourself and what you want in your life and how you want to achieve it. So I think asking the right questions always brings the best answers. It's not just any question or asking a broad question. It's what is the precision of that question? Because that's what's going to direct you forward in the right spot, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny, early on, you mentioned how people thought you were crazy when you went all in on martial arts. And Kevin and I, after our brush with death, my car accident, his suicidal ideation at 26 years old, people thought we were crazy. Like, why would you ever leave a job making that much money? You know, and now it's actually starting to really, people are like, oh, interesting. You guys are doing it. But early on, I mean, it was nothing short of brutal to try to explain why you were doing what you were doing. And maybe in hindsight, I wouldn't explain it if I could go back or even try to be honest. I'd just put that into our craft. How did you get through and navigate the social pressures when no one knew that UFC would be, I don't want to say no one, but most people didn't know UFC would be what it is today?
So you ask a lot, and a lot of important things there to unpack. But I think the simple answer is death itself. Death itself is the reminder. It was for the samurai. It was for, a lot of the warrior culture. It's the reminder that life can end at any moment. And why would you want anything else for your life but meaning and purpose and love and all those things that fill you up, right? In the right way, not in the superficial way or the temporary way, but what is that guiding force that long term? And you always have to think long term. And I think that was kind of the thing for me. And gosh, what else? You said a lot there. Sorry.
He always does, Kenny.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
there's a deep question.
How did you deal with the social
Oh,
pressures?
yes,
Yeah.
So absolutely. It's like, I don't care about those other people. And are we? And this is kind of from a loose Krishnamurti quote, but it's no great achievement to accustomize yourself to an insane society. Like are we crazy or are they crazy? Who's crazy? So it's like, what is our path? What is our authentic vision for ourselves? And if you stray from that, then you're not going to have that meaning and you're not going to be happy. And, some people genuinely have, good intentions. Like, Kenny, why do you want to fight? You can get hurt. You can do that. Like, I get that totally. But, my love for martial arts and my love to evolve and my need to learn and my need to test myself was greater than any of that. And I needed to listen to that. I needed to run towards my fear. That's what that was about. And it was something that I just kept going deeper and deeper into and wanted to learn as much as possible. So I think that, having a very clear vision for yourself, being as authentic with yourself and honest with yourself as you can be, is one of the greatest gifts. And the other thing I would say is, like, I don't know how many great things have been achieved by people who thought like normal people. All the great things that we have in this world that have been created or that have been achieved were done by people who thought different from everybody. And I think that's an important thing to remember.
So powerful.
Yeah,
Last question for me, Kenny, before we let you go, because we'll keep you here all day. Okay. You start out on the local scene fighting, right? On The Ultimate Fighter, national television, on big cards, 20,000 people. How has your identity changed over the years, and what has that done to you, and what has that forced you to shift in yourself?
Wow. Well, I guess to go back to Alan's question and to kind of relate it to how it started, I remember thinking about those people that were watching me. I remember thinking about the contract and the money and what was at stake, and all those things didn't matter. Those weren't things that were going to help me perform. And I remember letting that pressure get to me. So I remember trying to delete all of those things as much as possible and trying to be as present as possible in that process. So I've tried to be as present with all the things that I do. It's a difficult practice, so I try to approach things in a childlike manner in a lot of ways, and try to see things as fresh as can be, so I can learn and see things a little bit different. Because perspective is a powerful thing. So it's jiu-jitsu or martial arts in general and competition in general has allowed me to be humble, to be more present, to understand the power of work ethic, and composure. Like we need the most amount of composure when things get difficult. That's when we can reach into ourselves and access all of our weapons, all of our tools, all of our capabilities. It's by staying calm. So yeah, I mean, it's everything I do, everything I see is kind of through that lens. So it's spread itself in all aspects of my life, whether I'm, being a dad, or being a husband, or being a business owner, or, being creative, or whatever it is. I see almost all of those things through that lens.
I know we got to let you go, Kenny. This was truly, truly wonderful. So obviously you have a podcast with one John Anik. You also are a commentator for the PFL.
Yes, sir.
Talk about more where people can find you and where they can check you out.
Thank you. I'm also doing commentary for a show called BattleBots on Discovery Channel, which is on right now. It's on Thursdays at 8 p.m. And I also just released a jiu-jitsu instructional where I talk about the conceptual approach to teaching and learning. And that is at KennyFlorianMartialArts.com. And you guys can also catch me on social media at Kenny Florian. And I hope this was helpful, and this is a great conversation. And I'm sure we could talk again sometime.
I would like that very much. This was wonderful, Kenny. I appreciate it very much. I know Alan did. And I think it's important to get a behind the scenes of what somebody's actually thinking. You see him perform, but there's always something going on behind the scenes.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Kenny, thank you so much. Also, a book suggestion: Josh Waitzkin, The Art of Learning.
I read it already.
Okay, yeah, unbelievable. Of course,
it's an amazing book. Yeah, I read
so
that very
good.
early on. I love it. Yes, thank you.
Powerful.
Kenny, thank you so very much. We appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
Talk soon.